show you some live pictures now out of KwaZulu-Natal. At the command center, members of the SANDF are among the thousands of disaster relief workers now on the ground in the aftermath of last week's devastating storms. Ziyanda Ngcobo, our senior politics reporter, is there for us. Ziyanda, tell us more about this command center and why we are focused there right now.
A very good afternoon to you, Tembegile. As you can see, there are choppers here at the old airport in Virginia, where you can see a police chopper, but also to my right you'll see an SANDF chopper that is ferrying General Sandile Goodwin Hlongwa. He has been leading then the operations of the SANDF. We've just missed him. He's rushing off somewhere. We've been told he'll be back in the next hour or so, and I'd like to assume, and I can't say this for sure, but I'd like to assume that he's either going to a meeting or going to assess other areas that would need the necessary relief. This is also where the KZN Premier Sihle Zikalala, as well as the Cooperative Governance MEC, held their briefing yesterday, and you can see choppers are landing and taking off. There's another one that is landing with the rescue workers. You recall that there are 10,000 boots on the ground from the National Defence Force in an effort then to bolster the efforts to recover bodies now. It would seem that the operations have now moved towards recovery as opposed to a rescue mission. So Tembegile, you can see then the numbers that are coming out. They are the rescue teams. It looks like those are divers, if my eyes are not betraying me at this particular point in time, and you'll know that they'd be pivotal in being able to recover those bodies. I mean, I remember one of the interviews that we held on Newzroom Afrika that, some of the bodies may never ever be found because some of them are stuck beneath at around 30 meters of sludge. So we're just going to move to the side because you can see there's quite a lot of movement here with the vehicles that are in and out of this command center. This is the nerve center for the search and rescue operations that are currently underway in KwaZulu-Natal, Tembegile. And, as we would have heard from the KZN Premier yesterday, this is actually one of the efforts that is assisting then, I think, with the fast tracking of the recovery of bodies. So there's that chopper now leaving once again. We're not sure where it's going, but this is just giving you a picture then of just the fast movements in and out, as there are families that we've been interviewing across the board that are waiting for assistance in far-flung areas where, in some instances, although it's not as bad as it was last week, access to areas remains a challenge.
And Ziyanda, watching this footage that you're showing us now confirms that there is still a lot of work going on. As you were saying, people still missing, bodies still not recovered.
Absolutely. The death toll currently sits at 448, but if you speak to officials, not only from the search and rescue teams, but even from government officials, they're expecting this number to climb quite dramatically once then, the operations, well, they are in full swing, but once the boots on the ground, which we now have, continue with their efforts. There are areas that have been identified, as one of those that are in desperate need of assistance. And so it's at this center where there's a heat map of sorts, if I could put it that way, which identifies the areas that need the most urgent help. We know that the SANDF has been around providing aerial assistance, but, in terms of boots on the ground, now with the boots on the ground, with the protection of communities from those collapsed bridges, for an example, we'll be seeing also the SANDF assisting with the rebuilding of the infrastructure and possibly with the assistance of resettling some of these community members. This area is a nerve center, really, Tembegile, to actually fast-track this process. given the fact that we're also, at this stage not getting clear timelines from the government, and perhaps the reason for that is because they know that these numbers are likely to climb at a dramatic pace before they can even start dealing with the numbers. And there you can hear the chopper ferrying General Sandile Hlongwa about to take off. He's one of those who is able to speak about the operations at the center. He's one of the senior, commanders within the SANDF. So we'll get an opportunity to speak to him later. But I mean, I'm going to step out of shots. There are planes landing. I mean, in the last couple of minutes or so that we've spoken to Mbegile, we've seen at least 3 planes and choppers, landing and taking off from this particular area. Just shows you. I mean, to my left, I can even see a petrol truck, which is, I would assume, obviously bringing the fuel for all these aircrafts. And this is also where, they're all the vans, both from the municipality and the SANDF. So at least from this point of view, there seems to be a better coordination. Understandably so, Tembekile. If there's still an opportunity to save lives, then why not then try and fast track the process? But even from a recovery point of view, the families are really just wanting closure. Some of them have even told us here in Newzroom Afrika that they won't be able to move on if they don't actually have a corpse to bury. Yes, the conditions are tough, but that will give them some semblance of closure, as opposed to just knowing that your loved one was probably stuck underneath, the meters and meters of soil and never seeing them again.
And Ziyanda, I'm hoping you're able to hear me still. You referenced earlier a briefing that we had from the Premier of KZN, Sihle from this very airport, the old airport in Durban. And the next time he briefs South Africa on the situation in eThekwini and surrounds, he will have personal questions to answer about the use of a water tanker outside his residence, because that's now developing into a bit of a personal scandal for him.
Yeah, Tembekile, you know what? It leads into the mistrust that citizens have against not only the KwaZulu-Natal government, but the government as a whole in terms of the management of resources, not only just financial, but as a human, and those water tankers. On Sunday, Tembekile, when the Premier was giving a comprehensive update on the relief efforts across the province and updating us on the various, interventions that departments are giving to communities. At the very end of that briefing, he's the one who initiated the conversation around this issue of a water tanker having been sent to his home, and instead of going to the residents of the Mercy. This was raised by the Mercy Residents Association, and he completely and flatly denied that this water tanker was directly diverted to his home for personal use. He even told us as journalists not to pay attention or to give oxygen to fake news, even going as far as saying that his wife is cooking food for the community. But then, just a few days later, it's now Wednesday, he's the same Premier who's now come to apologize to the residents for actually having that tanker diverted. In fact, even his officials this morning were on the AM report still denying that this water tanker was sent to the Premier's office, the Premier's home, I beg your pardon, and saying that it would seem that there was a miscommunication from those who are giving direction to the truck drivers at the depot. But I mean, at this stage, if the Premier has already flatly denied it and has now apologized, it just tells you that there was a lie there. And now KZN DA leader Francois Rogers is calling for him to step aside, Tembekile. I just want us to take a pause, because we are now competing against this chopper as it prepares to take off from the search and rescue operations center.
You understand, by for us, Ziyanda Ngcobo is our senior politics reporter. She's at Virginia Airport, known as the old airport by people in eThekwini. That's in Durban and KwaZulu-Natal. We've been watching members of the SAPS and the military coming and going. very much still an active situation in KwaZulu-Natal as far as the search for the missing, as well as the search for bodies. As Ziyanda was telling us, that in some cases we've heard horrific accounts of people who found their loved ones buried under meters and meters of mud in KwaZulu-Natal. In fact, one young man who spoke to Ziyanda, I think it was on Good Friday, told her how his family, his stepmother, his father, were killed almost instantly by the floodwater. They had to dig, he said, for about 8 hours. 8 hours is how long it took that young man and some of his neighbors to dig through the mud, and eventually they reached the body of his little brother. When they found that body, there was a massive rock, he was detailing, right over his brother's chest, and that too took several people to remove. So those have been just the horrific accounts that we've heard from people in eThekwini and surrounds, as many of them now prepare to lay their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, their boyfriends, girlfriends, and cousins. Some will even have to bury children. We have been reporting in the last few days on children as young as 5 dying in these floods in KwaZulu-Natal. When you say it is the worst natural disaster in recent history in South Africa, that then does not even begin to match the horror suffered by many of the families in KwaZulu-Natal, people who, long after many of us have moved on from the devastation in KwaZulu-Natal, will still be dealing with the emotional scars, the wounds of 2022. We will continue to keep you across operations by the SANDF, members of the police, NGOs and political parties in KwaZulu-Natal, right here on Newzroom Afrika after this.